In the world of investing, we're always told that success comes from more. More screens, more data, more speed. But what if that's not the real story? We're going to explore a completely different way to win, one that's built on quiet, on focus, and on a kind of radical simplicity. So just think about that for a second. What if the secret isn't what you add, but what you subtract? This idea, it really goes against the grain of modern finance, which feels like a constant race to get more and more information. We're going to look at an investor who took that whole idea and just flipped it completely on its head. And just look at this contrast. On one side, you've got the image we all have of Wall Street, right? A command center buzzing with alerts, screens everywhere, just total information overload. And on the other side, Josh Tarasoff. No formal office, no marketing, just one investment professional who started the whole thing from his bedroom. I mean, it sounds almost impossible. How could that even begin to compete, let alone succeed? Well, here's the punchline. A 17.3% net annualized return since 2006. That's not just succeeding, that is exceptional performance. And it was achieved by stripping away pretty much everything that most people think is essential. So that's the paradox we really need to dig into. So let's get right into it with Section 1, the paradox of simplicity. We're going to explore how Josh Tarasoff's pretty unconventional path shows us that doing less, but with an intense focus, can actually achieve so much more. You see, his story doesn't start at some fancy hedge fund or with a massive launch. After he got hooked on the ideas of value investing at Columbia Business School, he just started. He bootstrapped his firm, Greenlee Lane Capital, literally working out of his bedroom and investing his own money alongside a little bit from friends and family. And I think this quote really gets to the heart of it. It wasn't about following some playbook for success. For him, it was about a genuine excitement to just build something on his own terms. It was a personal journey he just had to start right away. Okay, that brings us to a really key idea, creating an environment for thinking. Tarasoff's incredibly simple setup isn't a limitation, and it's definitely not an accident. It is a deliberately engineered structure, and it's designed to protect his single most valuable asset. So you see, every single piece of this simplicity serves a purpose. It's all designed to steer clear of the groupthink you find at big firms, to avoid the distraction of constantly trying to raise money, and to remove the financial pressure that forces you into short-term decisions. It all serves one single goal, to create a space for pure, clear, independent thought. He basically just kept the same mindset he had when he was only investing for himself. And that's so important because, as soon as you start managing other people's money, there's this huge pressure to conform, to look professional in all the typical ways. By resisting that, he protected his unique way of seeing the world, which is the whole reason his firm even exists. All right, now we get to the real core of his investment philosophy. I mean, how does he build the confidence to make these big, concentrated bets? Well, he uses what we can call two different lenses of conviction. So the first lens is what he calls explicit conviction. This is the world that most investors live in and breathe. It's the analytical, rational, data-driven stuff. The spreadsheets, the competitive analysis, all the financial models. It answers that really basic question. On paper, does this investment make logical sense? But then there's the second lens, implicit conviction. And this is where things get a lot more nuanced. This is the intuitive feel for a business, for its culture, for its leadership. You're not going to find this kind of conviction on a financial statement. It's something that's built from experience and pattern recognition. It asks a totally different, but just as important question. Does this feel right? And this quote just captures it perfectly, how these two lenses work together. He says that when the analytical side, the explicit, clashes with the intuitive side, the implicit, well, his best investments have come from trusting the intuitive. He's learned to prioritize the quality of the people and the culture, even over what looks like a high number on a spreadsheet. So that leads to the next big question, right? If this implicit conviction, this feel, is so important, what does it actually look for? How do you even begin to define that feel of a great business? Let's try to break down this idea of quality. The idea here is that quality isn't just a checklist of things. It's something you learn to perceive directly. It's a skill, kind of like how a master musician can just hear when a note is perfect. It's a subconscious pattern recognition that's only earned through years and years of focused experience until your intuition becomes a guide you can actually trust. But we can put some tangible markers on it. These quality businesses, they often create those wow moments for their customers. They're usually driven by a real mission, not just by profit. They have true mastery of what they do, and they think from the ground up. And maybe most critically, they've got that founder mentality, that feeling that this isn't just a job, it's their life's work. And that leads us to the final and maybe the most profound layer of this whole approach. When you strip everything else away, all the noise and complexity, what are you left with? Well, you're left with the idea of investing as a form of self-expression. Tarasoff talks about the moment he decided to start his firm, and it wasn't some calculated choice he agonized over. He said the decision just sort of made itself. He was waiting in a restaurant, and he just knew. He calls it a moment of pure alignment, where his path just became totally clear, driven by an internal compass, not by what anyone else thought. And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. He sees his firm as an extension of himself, an authentic, uncompromising self-expression. He genuinely believes that by being completely true to his own process, he can serve his partners in a way that nobody else can. The goal isn't to be the best in some generic sense, but to be the absolute best version of himself. So we end up right back where we started, with a question for you to think about. In an industry that is constantly pushing for conformity and complexity, Josh Tarasoff's success points to a very different path. It really makes you wonder, what if your most powerful, most sustainable edge isn't buried in some complex algorithm, but in designing a process that is a pure, uncompromising expression of you?